Welcome to Leadership Bites with myself, your host, Guy Bloom. This is a leadership podcast where I have conversations with colleagues, I chat with guests, and sometimes there'll be just me talking. You can connect with me at livingbrave.com, and when you enjoy the episode, subscribe and please tell everyone. Paul, fantastic to have you on this episode of Leadership Bites. Welcome.
Well, thank you for having me, Guy.
Well, I'm super pleased to have you here. This has been something I've been anticipating. I get people who make contact and I make contact with them. So I do know who you are, of course. So I just like that little bit of a, hey, Paul, who are you? What do you do? Just so the audience can get that context and then we'll get into it.
Well, my name is Paul Hutchinson. I'm founder of a large real estate investment fund, but more importantly, I'm a philanthropist. I retired in 2017 to focus my time full-time on rescuing children, on building philanthropy. My claim to fame, though, is I stole Superman's girlfriend. We can talk about that later. But, yeah.
Well, we are going to talk about that because knowing the story from us talking about it, I went, do you know what? I think that's just an entire podcast in itself. So we'll get there in a moment. Probably going to lead with it. So listen, I would like to just get, I'm a firm believer, if you can understand a little bit about somebody's journey, you can have more understanding about the position that they inhabit now. So I don't want to get into your CV, but I would just like a sense of, do you know what, Guy, before I moved into this philanthropy space, there was a heck of a journey that got me here. So if we can just get a few minutes on that and then we can step off into the other stuff.
Absolutely. I've been somewhat of a serial entrepreneur. I wanted to be a doctor, a pediatric cardiologist, a heart surgeon on children when I was younger, but got in a big car accident and it kind of changed things in that arena. So I changed my major to business and finance. Built a very successful company in my early 20s that helped people overcome anxiety and depression disorders and cognitive restructuring that helped them change how they thought about themselves and their negative self-talk and transform them into a place where they can live a healthy life. In the process of doing so, I came to really understand the power of the mind and that visualization and that self-talk. And in doing so, was able to transform my life in a way where I could see my future differently. And I believe that change of mindset, together with some decisions I made in my early 20s, that I was going to dedicate my time and my money to charity and making a difference, those two things together were what catapulted me into being the founder of such a large investment firm. When I retired, it was a little over 4,000 employees. We now only have 2,000 employees, but even considerably bigger, a little over $43 billion in assets under management, founded by John Pennington and myself on the investment side. And the vision of where we could go back when we were very small, I think is a powerful story in and of itself. But that ability to control my thoughts about myself and the world and manifest and create, along with hard work, created a beautiful empire that has over 50,000 apartments and one of the largest owners of senior housing in the country, et cetera. Then my charity work took a strong center stage in my life about 10 years ago, where I was recruited to lead some undercover rescue missions. I have a special set of skills from a previous life that makes me somewhat safe in a dangerous place. That's never all the way safe, but going into the darkest recesses of hell to identify children who had been kidnapped or trafficked in a way where they were being sold for horrible things, sex trafficking, etc. And I've led 70 missions in 15 countries, transformed my life in every way. And I just in the last month have made the decision to discontinue the undercover rescues because I believe that sharing my stories of creating businesses and building the foundation and finding these children and how we're able to do so. I believe these stories will transform lives, and I believe they will do a bigger difference in eradicating trafficking as well as healing generational trauma and inspiring people than I ever could, just continuing doing the undercover work. So that's where we are today. I did my first podcast less than 3 weeks ago, and the guy only had 2,000 followers. We've had over 50,000 shares on that one podcast alone, and inspired me to reach out to more people with different types of audiences. And so I'm supremely interested in your audience in the UK and the good men and women that I know there, and the stories that I know can inspire them as well.
There's a lot there. So just recognizing that maybe there's some stepping stones to really understanding this. Let's just start with the catalyst. We can all look at something, and being recruited into something doesn't mean you want to do it, right? So when somebody recruits you to do something like that, is it just initially, yeah, I've got the skills, I can definitely help out, but also I'm running a large business, so I've got to make headspace for it and time for it. And was it a one-off in your mind? I'll just help because I can be of help.
Yeah.
Or no, actually, yeah. What sort of is the bridge into this whole endeavor?
Absolutely. Here's, I had a passion for helping children for a very long time, as you know, as we touched on. And when I was 10 years old, I wanted to be a heart surgeon, but not a heart surgeon regular, but one with children. And I was working at Primary Children's Hospital, getting ready to take the MCAT when things changed in my life. And I, after a car accident, had to change my major to business and finance. But I maintained that passion for helping kids. I served on multiple board of directors in child-related charities. I was on the board of directors for the Make-A-Wish Foundation, which here in the U.S., and I think it's abroad as well, with children who have cancer or life-threatening illnesses, we give them a wish, you know, whether it's meeting a celebrity or riding in a Ferrari or going to Disneyland. And what's interesting is in doing so, it gives them a sense of hope. And that sense of hope helps them in their recovery process. And the recovery is significantly higher percentage, which is beautiful. So fast forward, about 10 years ago, I got a phone call from our Attorney General here in Utah, who said, Paul, I've started meeting with this Homeland Security agent who is working in something regarding child trafficking. He said, it's pretty dark. It's the fastest growing criminal enterprise in the world, and good people don't know that it's even happening. He said, there's more today than all 300 years of the transatlantic slave trade put together. And we think that slavery disappeared at the time of Abraham Lincoln, you know, years ago. And he said, this gentleman has found about 20 children in Latin America. Now, this story I'm telling you briefly here, I won't tell you in depth, but it's coming out in a movie this year. It's called The Sound of Freedom. And Jim Caviezel, he plays Jesus, Passion of the Christ, Count of Monte Cristo. He plays the part of the Homeland Security agent who was down in Colombia. The actor who plays me is Eduardo Verástegui. He's one of the more famous actors in Mexico. He doesn't play Paul Hutchinson because at the time we filmed the movie, I was still doing the undercover. He plays Pablo Delgado, the billion-dollar fund manager that goes undercover to help identify children and later quits his job to do so. And so what happened in this, it's a true movie. It's not a little indie film. We put $15 million into production in this film and are now just looking for distribution. But what happened is they asked me to help out to finance that first rescue. It was going to be about $50,000. There was 20 children down there. And I thought, you know, $10,000 with Make-A-Wish, I can send a little girl to Disneyland, which is important. She's struggling with cancer. But 50,000 here, we could pull 20 children out of hell, get them back to their families. There just wasn't a comparison. And so I helped to make that happen. And a couple of weeks later, he called me and he said, Paul, I'm in Cartagena. And there's not just 20 children here, there's more than 50, and there's more than 100 children tied to the same ring. He said, we could rescue all of these children on the same day at the same time, but I need your help in a big way. And I said, well, how much do you need? He said, I need you. Can you be in Colombia in 2 days? He said, I have to have somebody who can effectively negotiate a multi-million-dollar real estate deal with the cartel, with the head trafficker. The head trafficker down here has an island that he wants to develop like a Jeffrey Epstein island, that he wants to bring wealthy guys down here. He thinks he can make tens of millions of dollars a year, but he needs $8 million to build out this sex resort for children. And I thought, this is dark. Are you kidding me? How can I help with this? He said, well, I know more about your background than most people. I know you could be somewhat safe in a dangerous place, but I need you to negotiate this deal with him. I need you to tell him that you're willing to fund this project under one condition. You're going to be down there in a couple weeks. You're going to bring a bunch of rich friends. He's going to show up with all of the children that he has under his control. And you're going to have a party. And during that party, we're going to have a sting, and we're going to rescue all of those children and put those guys in jail for good. And so 2 days later, I was in Colombia. I was face to face with the most evil people I've ever met and negotiated this deal. It ended up being the largest child rescue mission in one day in history that I know of, 127 children. And that the transition point for me, the thing that changed it forever, because this was supposed to be a one-time deal. I was sitting on this chair, and they brought out this little girl. Standing up was no taller than I was. She was 11, and there was tear stains in her makeup face. And I thought, oh my hell, this is really happening. People do this. She was a virgin. This was her first, and she was so scared. And everything in my body wanted to just say, you're going to be fine. You're going to see your parents again. And she was looking at me with this fear in her eyes, thinking I was this monster. And the most beautiful moment of my life was after the agents came and stormed the party and arrested everybody, and the child protective services people came in with the children, and you could hear them laughing and singing with the children, trying to calm them down. And that sound of freedom was the most beautiful sound that I ever heard. And so we named the movie The Sound of Freedom. And I turned to the Attorney General and I said, Sean, I've donated a lot of time to charity, but I've spent most of my life making rich people richer. I want to make a difference. I said, all right, you check. What do you need? And he said, Paul, unfortunately, the majority of demand for this horrible act around the world in second and third world countries comes from wealthy businessmen in first world countries who look and dress and talk like you. He said, if you're willing to be the bait, I'll change your whole life. And so I said, there's nothing. I said, if that was my 9-year-old, if that was my 11-year-old, I'd give every penny I have to get her out. I'd take a bullet for her. Just because the parents of those kids don't know where they are, don't have the resources that I have, don't have the skill set that I have, doesn't mean they love her any less. Or even if they were involved, which happens a lot, unfortunately. Even if they were involved, it doesn't mean that little girl is worth anything less than my own child. So I said, I'm in. What do you need? And so for the next year, I played the role of the wealthy businessman, because he said, I can't teach my Navy SEALs how to wear a $4,000 suit and a $50,000 watch and negotiate a big deal. And so I played that part of that wealthy businessman, and the undercover agent guys would go in and they would connect with the traffickers and show them a fake Facebook page, Paul Stone, Paul Steele, Paul Black. It wasn't Paul Hutchinson. And say, hey, this guy. And I had pictures of me with Lamborghinis and Ferraris and, all this crap that I didn't want to put on my regular Facebook, because that just made me look like an ass. And so I completely shut down all of my social media, anything. And they took this and showed this to the traffickers, say, hey, there's a rich guy that's coming down. We're setting up a party for him, whatever. And these guys would bring these trafficked children out of the woodwork. And over again, we were able to pull these children out of the worst recesses of hell and get them back to their family. And a little over a year into it, the Homeland Security agent that was working with us, Tim, he said, Paul, he said, you're really good at talking with these guys, and you're really good at feeling the right words to say at the right time, and intuitively knowing what direction to go and who to talk to and whatever. He said, how do you feel about going deep cover? Instead of being this wealthy business guy, how about you set it up for a wealthy business guy? And so he said, this is super dangerous. You're going to be 2 a.m. in downtown Mexico City, downtown Port-au-Prince, Haiti, and these super dangerous areas. And so I said, absolutely. I'll do whatever it takes to fix this problem. And my goal at the time was to eradicate child trafficking. I thought, you know what? This is something we can fix. This is something everybody can get behind. And so for the next 8 years, I continued to lead deep undercover rescue missions where we would go and make friends with the worst guys on the planet. And I was setting up these sting operations. And just this last year, just last year, I finished up some rescue missions in Ecuador, and we took down 6 different trafficking rings. And afterwards, I looked at the numbers, and I realized that there are more children being trafficked today than there were 10 years ago when I started. And I thought, if my goal is to eradicate this, what's going wrong? And I realized that just pulling 20 children out of hell, now we've got to figure out how to rehabilitate them. Yes, I made a massive difference in the lives of those children. But while there was still a demand, 20 more children were going to be brought in to replace them. Was I making a difference, or was I making it so that I was creating a void? And so I thought, the only way to fix this is not just going in and pulling these kids out of hell. I've got to figure out how to fix the demand. How do I change the hearts and the minds of the people who would do this? And I realized this. I realized that if you put me in a room with 100 traffickers and 100 pedophiles, and you said, Paul, you have the next hour with these guys, and you can either have a gun with no retribution, or you can have a microphone. What would you take? I would take that microphone. And I would take them into the pit of hell. And I would show them the depravity of the direction that they're going. And I would tell them the stories of the broken hearts and the children that I got to see firsthand, and the light at the end of the tunnel when we got them back with their families. And I would show them a light of healing for themselves. And I would actually do it with a degree of compassion. Because here's why, guy. I've realized that if I'm ever judging another human being, whether it's for doing a bad business deal with me, whether it's for getting snippy at me at the grocery store or cutting me off on the freeway, or whether it's for selling me a child, if I'm ever judging them, there's a 100% chance that I don't have enough information to make that judgment. I don't know if that guy cutting me off on the freeway, if his wife's in the hospital. And I don't know if that guy selling me a child, if he was raped as a child himself. He likely was. And I'm sure there was 1,000 bad other things that happened and 1,000 bad decisions that he made that got him to that point. Now, I'm going to do everything in my power to ensure he never hurts another child again. And I'm going to make sure that he's put in a place where he can find some degree of redemption, but I can't judge him. And I also came to an understanding that it's not just the guys who are contact offenders. 1 out of every 5 men in the United States, and a bigger percentage in other countries, 1 out of every 5, 20% have experienced sexual violence at some time in their life. And 1/4 of them, over 200 million men on earth, experienced it under the age of 10 years old. 92% of them was by family members. And so they have this trauma from childhood, that they grow up and become wealthy and successful. And this trauma ends up transferring into creating trauma in the lives of others. 40% of all women have experienced that degree of violence, and 1/4 of all women as children. And so if I can help heal that generational trauma before they become contact offenders, and it's not just they're going to pass on sexual violence. It could come out in anger, verbal abuse, sexual abuse, physical abuse, or just low self-esteem. If I can help them change how they see themselves and shed that crap that happened in their past, hold on to a new version of themselves, this new light, then I can transform their lives. And that is what has brought us to the point where we are right now, where I've decided to go public, share the stories of darkness, but share the stories of light and hope and love in a way that we can truly help people transform their lives. And I believe that will rescue millions of children.
Thank you. So one of the things I notice is that you said X amount of years on, the trafficking is at an all-time, almost historic high. So maybe I've got a lot of questions, but one is the demographic that these children are in bulk from. That's one question I think helps set a little bit of context. And the second one is, how is this increasing? Or at the very least, how is it with social media and people going missing? Why am I only hearing about the odd child every now and then that seems to have walked down the shops and disappeared? There's something out of kilter. And maybe my third question is, where is the media in this? So number one is the demographic. Number two is, why is it why is there so much of it when you'd actually think right now there should be less? And I'm sure you've made a big dent in it. And then number three, where's the media in this? I can remind you of those questions as we go, don't worry.
So first of all, the demographic. In almost every rescue mission that we've done, the majority of the children are from those third world countries and from broken homes and from the foster programs and whatnot that are there that are broken as well. Small percentage, very, very small percentage are affluent homes where the child was abducted and taken into this horrible place. We hear those stories here and there with was that girl Madeline, the one that was in Portugal years ago. Those are high profile families, high profile stories that are brought into this. But the majority of them come from very poor areas. In fact, in that first rescue I told you about, one of the traffickers was a female. She was a beauty queen. She was like Miss Cartagena or something. And she had a fake modeling agency where she would go to towns in Latin America, poor areas, and tell the parents, "Oh, your daughter's too pretty to be working, in the fields, and she should be a model. She could do really well in that." And the parents would bring them to a photo shoot, and then boom, they would be gone. Or what will happen is, in places like Southeast Asia, more than half the children that we rescued in Thailand were sold by their own families. And they have 5 children and they're so poor they can't feed them. And they sell one of them, hoping that she's going to end up having some wealthy American come into the brothel and fall in love with her. Horrible. But so when we rescue them, we can't put them back into those same homes to be sold again. We have to find healthy places for them to grow up and a healthy home that they can find love and acceptance. So that's the majority of them. That's probably one of the reasons why you don't hear about it on the media, because the ones that you hear about are the ones that are abducted, taken from an affluent family that has access to the media. The ones that you don't hear about, the millions, the 8 million children right now. The average age is 12 years old that they are brought into this horrible life. 8 million. Most of them are coming from broken homes, from poor homes. Now, again, like I said earlier, it doesn't mean that that child is worth any less than one that comes from a home like mine or yours. But in reality, that's the demographic of the kids.
And this is, just for me to check in, this is usually in country. They're not being taken out of the country, because that's another level of complexity.
A fourth to a half of the children that we rescue in a lot of these areas are actually brought in from other countries because they are traded around. Unfortunately, the demand in these countries is for some degree of diversity. And so that rescue that I told you about in Colombia, in Colombia and Cartagena area, they when they brought out that little 11-year-old, they brought out 4 virgins at the same time there. 3 little girls, 1 little boy. This little boy was 11 as well, and he was taken from Haiti. And they gave him cocaine that morning because he was so scared. And what kind of effed up monster thinks that that's attractive, you know? And there were some children that were brought in from Asia, some other place. So there's kids from all over that are traded beyond countries, but it's easier for them to make sure they can't get back to their families. We just barely finished a rescue mission in Ecuador, and our leads actually came in from a little girl who had been transferred to Peru. She was 13 when she was taken. She was just barely turned 15 when she was found in the hospital. And my wife, Vanessa, who used to be a famous actress in Colombia, she was doing all the aftercare, helping with the aftercare. And she went and met with this little girl that was in the hospital. She had gotten beat up because she had a minimum of $1,000 a day that she needed to bring in. She was only making $50 on each trip. And she was just 14 years old. And she got beat up and was in the hospital. And that's where we were able to pull her out. But her family didn't really even exist. Her mother died when she was 8. And her father was a raging alcoholic. And she was being raised by her aunt and uncle. And her uncle started raping her when she was 10. And by the time she was 13, she was like, she met one of these traffickers who wooed her and said, "Hey, you can have a better life with me. I'll be your boyfriend." And so she ends up, packing her stuff and going with him. And he buys her a one-way ticket to Peru. And when she gets there, he said, "Okay, let me tell you what now you're going to do." Buys her sexy clothes, takes away her passport. She has nobody to call, nobody to talk to, nowhere to go. And so that's the demographic. It's sad, but again, what's creating it is this demand. If there wasn't a demand, he wouldn't have taken her. There wouldn't be any money there. He wouldn't be mandating $1,000 a day. It's the demand that has to be fixed. So,
and when we say, just on this demographic, you said 8 million, mm-hmm. and I completely accept that, but I have no point of reference. And I'm just going to say what jumped into my mind, because that's all I've got to offer really at this point, which is that sounds a lot. And it scares me. It would have freaked me out if you'd have said 1 million, frankly. In fact, if you'd have said 500,000 globally, I'd have gone, God, that's a hell of a lot. So when we say 8 million, it's almost, I mean, it's fundamentally believable because I believe you, but it's so much that how is that number? How are we getting to that number? Because you know how much you've been pulled into, you know what you've been involved in. What's the extrapolation there? Because I mean, any number's a lot.
Yeah. Yep.
But 8 million freaks me out, frankly.
Absolutely. There's a lot of different organizations that will tell you a number anywhere between 8 million and 12 million. I go with the conservative one. They're going into cities, the populations of those cities, going doing stuff like I'm doing and saying, okay, how many kids are actually here? Understand this: that number is not including the underage labor force in what I would be considering some degree of child exploitation in other countries where these kids are
cobalt mining,
Yeah, exactly.
or something like that. Yeah,
astronomically high numbers. Not that 8 million isn't, but yeah, these are numbers by multiple foundations, the child advocacy foundations, and these are children that are being traditionally sold for sex trafficking and organ harvesting and really dark things. That's the work that we've been doing, and so and the numbers significantly higher if you throw in the child labor camps, etc., which is horrible as well. And so that's I haven't counted them all myself, but I'll tell you this: you can put me into a city, any city, any city in the world, is preferably one that speaks English so I can get my way around. But any city in the world, and within an hour or two, I will find the guys who are selling children. So it's very prevalent, and I can do so not just because I know where to go and who to ask. I go into the darkest areas there and ask the most dangerous guys who they know, and but a lot of it is following something that, in fact, I want to touch on because I think that this is super important for any business owner that's watching, anybody who wants to do something with their life. But it's a super important piece of the puzzle for me when it came to this world. And I'm going to lighten it up here a little bit because this is super powerful. When I was about 22, 23 years old, I was just now changing my major to business and finance, but I'm still donating some time with some charity things. Somebody introduced me to a guy by the name of Jerry Prine. Jerry unfortunately passed away in 2010, but Jerry never learned how to read. Jerry was maybe reading on a third grade level, if that. His mother had died. Oh no, his mother was in a mental institution when he was little. His father, an alcoholic. He was traded between all these horrible places, a life of crime. He grew up to end up being an inventor, and he still didn't know how to read. Yet he invented over 300 life-saving medical devices. And he was the original inventor of the voice recognition technology that IBM used. That all this, and I was at lunch with him, and he said, "Paul," he said, "you could have an IQ at 200 if you wanted." And I'm like, "What? You can't change your IQ. You can't do that." I said, "Plus, I'm really not that smart. I worked really hard for my grades, and I didn't even get a scholarship." He said, "No." He said, "The difference between me and you is that I listen better than you." And I said, You listen better than me?" And I touched my ear. He said, "No, I listen better than you." And he touched his heart. He said, "Most people discount their intuitions because they don't believe in themselves. They look in the mirror and they think, I made so many bad decisions. Why could this come from anywhere of value?" They don't understand that every single one of us are connected with something that we can't see and we can't even measure with our devices today. He said, we're connected to the earth. We're connected to everything. And there's this beautiful ability to sense things and to lead our lives in a way. He said, you can call it karma. You can call it the universe. You can call it God. You can call it whatever you want. There's greater powers beyond us here that if we trust them and lead our lives in a way, we can have a world of abundance. We can follow our way into a place consistent with our goals and dreams that are bringing light and love into our life. And following that advice, he asked me, it was funny. He said, "Paul, do you think I'm the inventor of these medical devices?" I said, "You have the patents, right?" He goes, "Yeah, I do." I said, "Then you're the inventor." He goes, "No, I'm not." I said, "What do you mean by that?" He said, "How long has the universe been around?" I said, "Oh, millions of years." He said, "Billions and billions upon billions of years." He said, "I believe those medical devices were invented billions of years ago. I was a better listener than you." He said, "If you listen, It will direct you. And I built my companies. I brought in the right partners. I made the phone calls at the right time. I followed the calls to action from a charity standpoint, all not based on logic and protocol, but by listening. And so fast forward into this place where we are now. This is the reason why I can go into any city anywhere, because I can be cloaked in darkness, but I can have light from within, because I know I'm operating from a place of love, from a place of integrity, from a place of fighting evil. And I can listen, and I can be directed, and I can find these kids. And it's hard for most people. Most people think that, faith is a religious term. It's not. Unwavering conviction is something that most people have a hard time with, because they don't know if their convictions or their goals are in line with what God wants or what the universe wants or whatever. It's easy for me to have unwavering conviction that I'm going to find these kids, because I don't care if God's a waterfall or a mountain or a sky or a man or a woman. There is not a higher power anywhere that's okay with these children being sold for this type of thing. And so because of that, it's easy for me to harness in that power and learn how unwavering faith or conviction can lead my life. And I've been able to apply it in all the other areas that has transformed my life and my business and my relationships. So I wanted to touch on that, because that, my book that's coming out in a few more months is called Are You Listening? With my hand on my heart. And it's going to talk about finding these children using that gift and building gift businesses using that light from within. Because I think and in helping these children find this new path of healing through looking inside and understanding that they are not defined by what has happened to them.
Thank you. So I'd just like to finish off on those. Thank you for the demographic. Why there's so many? Well, that's because people want them, which is a horrible thing to hear. But by definition, it's supply and demand. And I guess I just want to keep following through on the media. So where is the media in this? Because I don't really want to hear about Harry and Meghan Markle or whatever, in comparison to. So where's the media in this?
Unfortunately, there are so many people that want to hear about Harry. That's just what happens is they live their lives with their head in the sand. I mean, think about it this way, Guy, this isn't something you want to bring up over dinner conversation. Hey, how you guys doing? Have a barbecue at the house. Did you hear about that? There's 8 million children. People are like, you know what? Can we talk about the sports game that's on? It's sad, but the fact that we live so superficially, and we live this day-to-day life, home to work, living the same thing every single day, and we don't want to hear about the starving kids in Africa. We don't want to hear about the kids that are being sold for these horrible things. We want to talk about, what celebrity did whatever last week and who the Golden Globe Awards went to. And that's, unfortunately, we live in this superficial world. And so many of us are carrying so much heartache of our own. Everybody has had some degree of trauma sometime in their life that they have buried. And because of that darkness that they already have, they don't want to hear about all the darkness that's out there. They want a superficial way of just popping a pill or talking about something that really doesn't matter to make them feel better about their own life that they're living of being a wandering generality, not being a meaningful specific, not going out there and living the life of their dreams. And unfortunately, that demand is what's driving the media. And fortunately, we're starting to get some traction there. But I'll tell you this movie that we put together is a beautiful story. The Sound of Freedom is such a beautiful story. We're having a hard time getting distribution because everybody wants to watch superficial crap, And so it is what it is. I know that I'm, fighting an uphill battle here. And so, and taking a step back, if I can use these stories to help people deal with some of their own trauma, if I can share some things that'll help people break free of this mundane life that they have and see this beautiful life that they can take and making a difference in people's lives and saying, can I spend some time every day in charity? Can I realize that true happiness is going to come from making a powerful, positive impact in the lives of other people? If I can teach people how to feel at that level, then I can help them get out of this drudgery that they're in and demand that we do something different and make a difference. So here's the reality, though. I don't think that having a whole bunch of media about starving children in Africa is going to fix the problem of starving children in Africa. And I don't think that having a bunch of media about trafficked children is going to fix the problem either. It's really not. It's going to make a lot of people mad. It's going to make them sick to their stomachs. Yes, there's going to be people that write checks that want to help. I've got a foundation called the Child Liberation Foundation. And you can go to liberatachild.org or liberatechildren.org. But and yes, people can feel good about writing checks and saying, okay, I want to help fight trafficking, and they can feel good about that. But the truth is, just showing pictures to affluent people of abject poverty isn't going to fix it. I've got to change the thought patterns and the visual of the people who are in abject poverty and help them see that they can have a better life. Help them see that they have greater potential than being in that place. Yes, the affluent need to write checks so that they can create a platform, so that they can create an environment that allows those people in poverty to step out. But the most important thing is changing how they see themselves. It's the same thing here. We need to help change the mindset and the thoughts of the people who are going down this dark road and help them see that they can heal their trauma before they pass that trauma on to others. And that direction is going to create systemic change everywhere. But we have to change how we're approaching it. And so I'm after 10 years of doing this, I'm not sure that a whole bunch of media showing people how horrible this problem is going to fix it. We've got to change the demand.
I mean, anything that's illegal still happens, even if it's, alcohol can be made illegal, it still happens.
Yeah, it's illegal.
Okay.
Right? And before COVID, I was in a different country almost every other week. I was speaking to royalty and world leaders and change makers, and we were changing laws all over the country, all over the world, and making sure that they tightened up those laws, et cetera, because I thought that was it. But you're exactly right. It's not in almost every country in the world, this is illegal. And people are doing it anyway because there's a demand. And so you're exactly right. Just making alcohol illegal, it didn't fix the problem. You need to educate the people. You need to change the direction of where they're taking their life instead.
And because what you're saying is often so content rich, there's two or three things that ping off at any one point. So I'm just going to ask you a question which we may edit out dependent on whether or not you go, whatever. But somewhere like the Daily Wire or somewhere like that did the What is a Woman video. Have you come across them? The Ben Shapiro kind of Daily Wire.
Yeah, I've seen Daily Wire stuff and whatnot, and yeah.
I mean, I just think just getting it out there with a massive. Never mind trying to get Netflix. Never mind trying to get that kind of thing. I'm just going for that. Do you know what? Because that went viral.
Absolutely.
Because it was accessible through a paywall, but they bought into it and they publicised it, and that went absolutely phenomenal. So is that something that's been looked at?
Yes, we have. In fact, we started looking at that 10 years ago, or 9 years ago when I very first started. So Tim, the Homeland Security agent that first was down there in Cartagena, Colombia, when we did that big rescue, the 127 children, and at the end of that rescue, when we sat down with me and him and our attorney general, and he said, Paul, he said, your ability to just say the right things and stuff, can you start doing some of this undercover work and finding these children? He said, we need to have a face. We need to have a public figure that can go out and start sharing these stories. So that's exactly what happened. He was on that next week. He was on CBS and ABC, and they shared the stories. They shared that story of that child rescue mission that we did. And there's been a lot of traction in publicity in having him get his face out there. He couldn't do the undercover work with his face out there like it was. Just like, me coming out like this I'm not going to be able to continue on the undercover side. And there's been a number of people that have gone down that road, and we've had CBS articles, we've had NBC articles, we've had Newsweek one. We've had a lot of these that have been out there. Some of them have gained some traction. Many of them have not, just because people don't want to hear it, or they think that whoever's online is like, hey, look at me, I did all these rescues. And that was my big concern in deciding to go public with some of these things. I don't want anybody to say, oh yeah, look at Paul, he's now using the challenges of these children and to promote himself. Look at me, Pete, look at me, oh, this is what I did. Unfortunately, that's what happens a lot. I've seen a lot of guys in this work that then decide, okay, I'm going to go public. I'm going to go start speaking about it. And they get some notoriety, and these rescue missions are more of an ego boost than something that's really making a difference and helping. And so I want to be super cautious as I'm doing these interviews that the people can feel that I'm speaking from the heart in a way that together we can truly make a difference. That it's not about me being a big talking head and promoting myself and putting my face everywhere. I'm not interested in that. If my heart and my voice and my words can make a difference, can transform the lives of people, can curb the demand, then yes, I'm willing to be out there. And that's the decision I've made in the last couple of months, that I'm willing to do so. But yes, we have been doing that with Tim, with some of the other operators that have been out there, and it hasn't caught the traction. So I'm changing the trajectory. I'm not just talking about, hey, look at us, we're doing child rescue missions. You can donate to our charity and whatever. Yes, you can. We're still funding rescue missions of guys that are going out and doing this. But my goal with my books and doing the podcasts and getting out there is to help not only create awareness, but more importantly, help change the hearts and the minds of the people who may be going down this road, and help them see that there is redemption. There is a way that they can take a new path where they aren't going down this road that would eventually hurt another person and pass that trauma on.
So I'm also interested in the political will. So we spoke about the media. And again, I'm talking about something from the outside looking in. So this will be an obvious question for you, or Guy, that's not the right question. So I'm very happy to be calibrated. So when I look at political will, and I think about, I see things on social media around Hollywood and Epstein and, these kind of things. And, the list of all the people that have been to Epstein's Island that never got published and all this kind of stuff. And, somebody showed me a picture of Epstein's cellmate. I don't know if you've ever seen a picture of it. Epstein's cellmate is an ex-police officer who was put away virtually for life for killing a drug dealer when he was doing a drugs deal himself that went bust. And he must have been a 6'4" steroided monster. I mean, He looked like he was about 19 stone of just something out of a Mad Max movie. I mean, it's incredible. And I go, okay. So, they've put this fella in a cell with this little fella, and then 24 hours later, the other one's dead. No, quelle surprise. And I guess what I'm also just interested in is, do you have a sense of barriers? Do you have a sense of barriers that go outside of just trying to get traction?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I'll just call it like it is. The perpetrators of these crimes go all the way up the flagpole, all the way up. And you saw it front and center with the Epstein catastrophe. There were so many high level, powerful people that were involved with that. Here, let me put it this way. Let me just put it this way. If you were a really sick bastard, and your goal was to control the system, and you needed to control people's votes, you needed to control powerful people, that those powerful people could not be controlled by any kind of words or logic or anything else. And these powerful people, you put them in a compromising position. You maybe invite them to a party and get them on film with a prostitute, and then you get them on film with somebody that's a little bit younger, maybe a 17-year-old prostitute. And then you tell them later, hey, you know what? Guess what? She was 17 at the time. Or you tell them she's 17, but hey, maybe they get a little taste of whatever, and then you bring them to a party and there's somebody younger, and you can get video evidence of them with a minor. You control them for life. For life. No matter if they're the next president or if they're a judge, you control them with that. And unfortunately, those book of dirty tricks that are being used by three-letter agencies around the world and by different governments around the world, that book of dirty tricks comes with that one front and center. So if you can get dirt of that degree on people, they will do anything for you because that can't come out. And it happens in Hollywood. It's rampant in a lot of areas of Hollywood. And so I'm going to go straight there with you. Yes, those barriers are in place because this problem goes all the way to the top in some cases. And it's sad, but I have seen it. And we have taken down some high-level political people in other countries, but the net that these guys, the protection walls that these guys put around themselves make it difficult to take down the guys who are high level part of the problem. Absolutely.
Okay. How safe are you going public?
Well, let me put it this way. This isn't a religious thing. This is a spiritual thing. When I'm 2 a.m. in downtown Mexico City, Port-au-Prince, Haiti, anywhere around the world, I'm in a pretty dangerous place. And I feel more protected there than I do sitting in my office in, downtown Salt Lake City. Yes, going public makes me a target. Well, because a lot of these guys, in fact, all of these guys that we arrested, they thought I get arrested with them. They think that I got extradited to the U.S. to stand trial. And now there's some of them that may see this and say, that dirty bastard, whatever. But I'm at no more risk than a good politician or a good judge that puts a cartel member behind bars, that puts a big gang member behind bars, they have to look over their shoulder as well. They have to find protection. And I have a few more skills than many of them have personally. But I believe that a higher power is protects me in those dangerous places, finding those kids. And now in this new mission to transform the world, it's a big mission, but I believe that my words and my stories and my heart can help heal generational trauma and help fix this problem. And just like I said earlier, people ask me how I can be face to face with these guys that are doing these horrible things and have them not see the anger in my eyes. And my answer surprises them. It's because I love them. Now, I love the innocence of the children more. And I'm hoping that these guys that have been behind bars for years now have come to a place where they've realized the depravity of their ways and have come to a place where they can have a softened heart. Maybe some of them don't now. Maybe many of them don't. And maybe they're saying, hey, now we're going to send somebody out against that guy, whatever. But I would rather risk that than live my life knowing that I could have made a bigger impact in the world than I did, but I lived in fear and I closed off. I mean, the reality is I pushed against this for a while. In fact, for the last 4 or 5 months, when people are saying, Paul, you need to go public, you need to share these stories, I said, you know what? I'm perfectly happy in a beautiful home, and I would be fine with a little cabin on a river with a garden and a gun and my family. Just let me have a whole bunch of nature around me and just live life and be happy. But I realized that when the man I am comes face to face with the man I could have become. And if I was given the gifts of being able to share and speak, and I was given the gifts of this beautiful life of abundance and resources, and given the gifts of these experiences, and if I could use these gifts to literally transform the lives of millions of people, and I choose not to, then shame on me.
Would you bring to life love? You say, I love them.
Yeah.
Now, I think I know what you mean, but I do not want to make the error of telling you what, telling you what you think. Obviously, you don't love the behavior.
Absolutely.
That's, of course not. So, love. I love them. Just give some meaning to that.
I'm going to start with this. If every single person that listens to me today could learn to look in the mirror and let go of judgment for all the stupid things that they did in their life, if they could let go of judgment, if they could make amends, do the best they can to fix whatever situations that happen because of their bad choices, but then look in the mirror and learn to love that man or woman in the mirror with unconditional love. Unconditional, not on any conditions, infinite love. If you could learn to look at that man in the mirror and say, I know that you made decisions in your past that were out of integrity. I know that other people were hurt because you were operating from a place of pain, from a place of anger, from a place of judgment, from whatever it was that you were going through at the time. But start with finding that inner peace within yourself, finding that place of love to the point where you can truly love yourself unconditionally. Then and only then can you get to the point where you can truly share that love with others? Because scientifically, it's impossible for you to love somebody else more than you love yourself. And people that say, "Oh, I have Christ-like love for the world. I have unconditional love. I really love my children." No. If you loathe that man in the mirror, if you have judgment that you can't let go of, then it's impossible for you to share that love with other people. And the word love is so generally used. Oh, I love this, I love that, I love ice cream, I love whatever. But really understanding what letting go of judgment is. Now, yes, I'm going to do everything in my power to ensure that those guys never, ever hurt another child again. But, and people live their life being taught to hate, being taught anger, being taught to judge. And it's a canker within their hearts because of the fact that as they judge everybody else, they judge themselves. And so, yes, we need to have laws. Yes, we need to have consequences. That's important that we have consequences for people's actions. Otherwise, we live in anarchy, right? But you can stand behind those consequences, and you can ensure that people are not in positions to hurt others. You can even take people out of the equation from a place of love, from a place of infinite expansion, from a place of understanding that I can love every human being for the light that is in them, for that heart that is maybe buried beyond years of trauma and years of bad decisions. I can still get deep inside and I can see the brilliance of their creation. And I can understand that somewhere inside is a broken person, a person that has dealt with a lot of trauma of their own. And I can love the innocence that's underneath all of it. And I can still uphold the law, and I can uphold order, and I can ensure that I preserve the innocence of those people that they may be trying to hurt. I can do so from a position of strength. I can put them behind bars, and I can do it from a position of love. Because I love the innocence of the children, and I love the light and the innocence and the trauma inside of that person that created that harm. It's a hard concept for people to understand. But I believe that this is a step we can take towards helping the world heal.
So just so I can make sure I have understood you at this point, this is something about believing in something more than the context that you're in.
Absolutely.
So the context may be I'm in front of somebody who's doing things that are per se despicable, but you have a belief in the human being, even though you don't approve of what the human's doing.
Precisely. Yeah, I can hate their actions. I can hate their sin, so to speak. I believe that the definition of sin is misunderstood. Sin is a forgetting of who we are, a forgetting of the fact that we come from, that our creation is so magnificent as human beings, and our ability to create and build and love and expand is so beautifully magical in so many ways. And our connection to each other and our connection to God and the universe, these are all such beautiful transformational understandings of who we are. And I can abhor the actions, but I can also understand that every single person on earth who has done some degree of horrific action, has had trauma of their own in some way. Now, that doesn't justify it in any way, but it can help me understand and start to love the innocence that is deep inside of them while I am making sure that they never hurt another person.
So this could be humanism, this could be spirituality, this could be religion. In some respects, it wouldn't really matter which one of those it was.
Yeah, I believe that religion as a whole has created more animosity and more anger and more judgment and more fear than anything. You can have a relationship with the deity above and the deity inside of each one of us without having to go through any kind of an organization to do so. No, I'm not cutting down on them. They're plenty of people, but I love them for who they are in whatever direction, that whatever is going to help lead people to do good is something that I will uphold.
Yeah. And if you have a religious perspective and taking the good elements of that, then this fits. If it's more spiritual, then this fits. And if it's more from a position of the human being and the humanistic perspective, this fits. Because actually, if you've got arms and legs, then this is actually, I do like that. This is about not forgetting, and it's about understanding the real reason that we're here and who we are and what we're supposed to be doing with each other. Yeah. So there's a connect. We're all stardust, right? And there's a connectivity thing going on.
Exactly.
Okay. I would like to just step into the future as we kind of come to the tail end of what could be probably a 3-day podcast. But I'm just alert to podcast conventions. And I'm not the Joe Rogan podcast where people will sit for 3 hours and listen. So, what is the next 1 to 5 years for you?
I have accepted this mission that I believe is set in front of me to every day share the stories of darkness and the stories of light in ways that I believe are going to help transform the lives of millions, if not billions of people. I believe that I can do that. I believe that it's not me that's doing that. I believe that we can do that. That everybody, that if there's anybody on this in your audience that's listening, that my words have made a shift in their life somehow. I don't need them out saying, "Oh, Paul Hutchinson is my hero." No, I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in them saying, "I learned something today that really created a massive change in my trajectory of my life, that I can see people from a different light, that I can get behind fighting darkness, that I can get behind charity work in a way that I couldn't before, that I can lead my family from the heart, that I can lead my company from a place of infinite love, that I can look at every other human being." If Paul can look at those traffickers with any degree of love at all, how can I not look at my employees or my children or my spouse with that same just infinite unconditional love? And how can I not just look in the mirror and see the magnificence of who I am? If I can start changing how people see themselves, if I can help them shed the trauma of their past and help them see that that does not define them, if I can help them step into a new life in which they let that go and they don't pass that trauma onto other people, and then they can go and share those stories with other people, being ambassadors to a new way of thinking, that will help transform the world. So I was just 2 weeks ago, I was in Dubai. I'd been asked to come and speak to
an audience of royalty and sheiks and world leaders that were there in Abu Dhabi. And when I got there, I landed in Dubai, and I got a text message, WhatsApp message from a friend that said, "Hey, I heard you're in Dubai. Have somebody want you to take a look at their business deal." And I thought, I'm here to spread the message of light and hope. I'm here to inspire these leaders, this tip of the umbrella that can then go out and inspire other people with changing this mindset and this heart. And I really don't want to be looking at business deals, but you know what? I'll go. I'm gonna just answer the call anytime. And so I went and met with these wonderful guys with these beautiful ideas. And there was on the back of this super yacht that they were at, that was right there at Palm Island. It was beautiful. And while I was there with them, in walked these guys who were like crypto billionaires, Bitcoin billionaires, super wealthy guys that had made a whole bunch of money. And they're like, "Hey, Paul, we heard what you're doing, and we want to learn how we can use our money for good and how to make an impact in the world." And I was in this beautiful conversation with these guys about how their wealth could go and literally help transform hearts and minds of others through their charity work. And then in walks a guy. They called him His Eminence. His Eminence Shayalpa, beautiful man with a beautiful heart. And he had been identified when he was a child as I guess a reincarnated Buddha or whatever else. And he felt my heart. He felt my energy. And he came over to me and spent the next couple hours not even paying attention to all of these other people that were on the boat. Just me and him had a 2-hour conversation. And he stood up and he said, "Paul," he said, "you were the reason I was directed to be here today. Your ability to speak and share with Western culture and even the 3 billion Christians in the world that could understand your words and your heart." He said, "I'm an ambassador for peace. I've spoken so many times to the United Nations and audiences around the world." He said, "I would like to have you come and start speaking with me about some of these subjects." And I said, "Wow," I said, "I'm honored." I said, I don't know I'm ready to speak from that degree of just inner peace and love like you can." And he said, "I will teach you." And so I'm flying next week to Nepal to spend a few weeks one-on-one and learning that level of inner peace so that I can use my voice and my resources and my audiences to help literally transform the hearts and minds of people in a beautiful way. So that's what the future looks like. If anybody listening has access to large podcasts, people or influencers or stages anywhere of people who want to feel that inspiration of how to build multi-billion-dollar companies from a place of the heart, from a place of integrity, from a place where you can literally transform the lives of others. If somebody wants me to come in and speak about charity work and how giving 20% of your time and your money to charity brings in the powers of the universe and into God into your life in a way that transforms your business life and everything else, I would love to share those stories and inspire people. So that's what the next 5 years looks like. I'll be writing a number of different books. People can follow me at paulhutchinsonofficial.com. If you don't want to write out that whole Paul Hutchinson Official, you can just type in soulhealer007.com and it'll automatically direct you to my Facebook page. But I'd love to just continue to have people that want to have me share and inspire. That's what my next 5 years looks like.
Okay. So listen, I'm going to bring us to a close. I'm going to get you to stop with me just for a little bit afterwards, just to make sure everything uploads as it should do, so I don't burst into tears if something's gone wrong. But it has been, Paul, an education. It has been inspirational. And it has been a privilege to spend some time with you, to hear you speak. I can be relatively ambivalent about quite a few things, but you've touched my heart and it's meant a great deal. So from me, and I'm sure from anybody else listening, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Guy. I'm supremely grateful that you would trust me enough to bring me on your show and that you would allow me to share my heart and my voice and these stories with people. And my hope is that something somewhere in this podcast will have touched the hearts of whoever's listening in a way where they can step forward into a new life and see life differently than they did before they were here on with us. So thank you.